On this episode of Rock Down South, we chat with country artist Jacob Bryant. We talk music and he tells us some crazy stories. We hope y'all enjoy. Let's go. Thank you so much for joining us for another exciting episode of Rock Down South, a show where my friends and I chat with musical artists and ask them the questions that we want to know about. We hope you guys enjoy this interview we did with country artist Jacob Bryant. We talk about his musical background, his latest album, Practice What I Preach, and we even go into detail about some of the specific tracks in that album. He also tells us a couple of crazy stories about the worst show he ever played, and also how his debut album was stolen by thieves. And of course, we talk heavy metal and rock music as well. So without further ado, here's the interview. Jacob, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. Hanging out in North Georgia.
Awesome, man. Are you over there permanently now?
Yeah, man. I'm born and raised in Jasper, Georgia, and I guess me back in 2009, 2010, I moved to Nashville for a couple of years and was doing my thing. And then my mother passed away. So I moved back to Georgia to kind of get everything back in order. And I've never left Georgia. And now I just travel back and forth. So I moved to the most northern part of Georgia that I could get to in between the LJ and Blue Ridge area. And I just go back and forth to Nashville every week and do my deal that way. That way I can still kind of have my little bit of privacy down here and enjoy the city as well, because I do love Nashville for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was curious of where you were at. I heard you bought a house recently. Congrats. And yeah, I didn't know if you were still in Nashville or are you back in Georgia. That's cool.
Yeah, we in LJ, Georgia.
LJ, I know the area. You know, me being from Georgia and all.
Yeah, man, it's definitely not nothing like it, if you drove through it at 5:15 or whatever. I mean, you literally go by an Ingles, a McDonald's, and a BP or something, and then you're already through it. So, there's not a whole lot here, and that's kind of what I liked about it. I've always said that, if I was ever going to buy a house, I need to be able to, I guess I would say, do number one off the front porch in the middle of daylight without somebody being able to see me. So we found that place.
And have you done that?
I believe it or not, I have not. That's kind of funny you asked that, because I've said that in interviews before and everybody's like, so did you actually do it? And it's like, no, it's just kind of just one of those things I've always said. If I can't take a piss off my front porch at 12 o'clock noon in the middle of daylight, I don't want to live there. So I found us a small plot out here with a little pond and creek frontage, and we were blessed enough, and God blessed us enough to where we could, get kind of our starter home per se, and we're looking for something eventually, a little bit closer to Ashland City area, north of Nashville. But for now, this is awesome, man. God's been good to us.
That's fantastic. How long have you now been playing music?
Now you're gonna make everybody know how old I am. No, I started playing guitar when I was 8 years old. My grandparents had a little bluegrass band that we sat around the house and played and whatnot on the weekends, just kind of like a family gathering kind of thing. And then that kind of evolved into, bigger gatherings and bigger gatherings. And I remember seeing pictures of, some of the stuff that we did down in the bottoms, as we call it, where my pawpaw had catfish ponds and a hatchery down there that I remember seeing, upwards of 300, 400, 500 people down there listening to bluegrass and partying and whatnot. So I grew up around music my whole life, but it definitely started in the bluegrass world and kind of evolved into country, and then kind of into Christian rock, and then out of Christian rock back into country and whatever. So I got a little bit of everything in there somewhere.
Interesting. And so that evolved into you writing your own music, or no, you're writing your own music the whole time, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I wrote a song called Take My Hand when I was 14 years old. That was the first thing I ever put on. Back then it was Xanga or MySpace or one of them, but That was the first thing I ever put on the internet, and then it kind of went on downhill from there. My uncle Scott had wrote a song called Queen of the City, and it kind of made a little, local buzz with that, and then it from there evolved and evolved. I've always just tried to play my own stuff. I don't want to be anybody else other than Jacob Bryant. I ain't trying to be Garth Brooks or Travis Tritt or George Strait or whoever. I mean, I look up to every single one of them, and I've took influence from every single one of them. But I want to write my own songs, and hopefully somebody likes them.
Definitely agree. And one of the cool things about you, Jacob, is you got a lot of music out there, man. And I think you just released the deluxe version of Practice What I Preach. And I think, was it 5 singles that you put out in 2020?
Yeah, yeah. We've always had the mindset of, if you ain't working harder than the best, you ain't gonna be the best, and being the best ain't necessarily singing better than somebody or looking better than somebody or anything like that. It's just, like, and the way that I was brought up, you got to work, you got to go. So I've always had a very kind of strict mindset when it comes to work ethic. And, during COVID, we had to figure out how to, survive, paying a lot of the overhead that goes into this business. People don't understand, with paying for a tour bus and a trailer and the crew and the band and everybody else, trying to make sure everybody ain't starving and whatever. So we've kind of stuck real close to the studio throughout this pandemic thing, and recorded a lot. I mean, 30 plus tracks, and released some stuff. And then, like you said, we came out with the deluxe edition of the album and released that in the UK, and it went, I think, up to number 8. The album was number 8, and the single "Pour Whiskey on My Grave," which wasn't necessarily new to the U.S., but over there it was number 1 on Planet Rock Radio, and it's really growing some legs over there as far as the album climbing the charts still. And we're set to release a couple more on that record in the UK. So it's been a pretty cool ride to kind of watch how things do in a country I've never even been to. So I'm excited to see the travel bans lift and get my butt over there and get to talking to some of these people that are enjoying this music.
Yeah, man. I know you have a huge following in the UK now. I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. Like you said, Pour Whiskey on My Grave is doing extremely well over there here in 2021. And I know this was a big single for you back in was it 2018 when it came out?
No, that came out in February. Maybe you may be right. I swear it wasn't that long ago. I guess it just don't feel that long ago. I was thinking the album came out in February. The single, I think you are right. I think the single came out in 2018 and the album came out in 2020. So you may be right. I think it was February of 2020 that the album actually dropped, or maybe 19. I think you are right. See, that's how much I've been in the studio. I don't know. We've recorded so much music. I don't know what, when, and where came out. So, but yes, I mean it's
You get a second wind here with the single. I bet that feels fantastic.
yes, it does, and it's also one of those things too. I mean, I remember the first time I heard that song, and unfortunately, I didn't write it. A good buddy of mine, Jamie Grooms, and his buddy that wrote "I'm from the Country and I Like It That Way." He's an incredible writer as well. But they wrote that song, and I was sitting at a songwriters round in Nashville, and his name's Marty Brown, by the way, the other writer. But we were sitting at a songwriters round in Nashville, and Jamie goes off into this track and says the words, "When I'm gone, don't bring me pretty flowers. Don't sit and cry for me at my tombstone," whatever. And I remember looking at my manager and going, "Man, I really have to have that song," because that was something that I held near and dear to myself with what I'd went through with losing my mother and things like that. So I've always went to her grave and poured out a beer and sat there and kind of reminisced, because she was my drinking buddy and my biggest fan, of course, like all mothers would be, and it was just one of those songs that was really cool, so when it had its legs that it did over here and landed us at number 1 on iTunes in the US, and did all that. It was, of course, amazing. But then when it grabbed, more legs, where we have Universal Records / Snake Farm Records, which is, the under UMG in the UK, contact us about re-releasing this album, and they love the songs and whatever. When we release this stuff and it has that kind of success, it's absolutely humbling to just have a dude from a single wide trailer on a 3-mile dirt road have that kind of something going on in a country I've never been to. So one, I can't thank God enough. I can't thank my team enough. I can't thank the label enough for pushing this thing and getting it the legs that it deserves.
I mean, it's a fantastic track. I really enjoy it. And that was actually my first introduction to you. One of the girls that I know was actually in that music video as one of the models that you guys had. And I think she had posted it on Facebook or something like that. And I was like, oh, let me tune in this music video she was in. And I was like, oh man, this is actually pretty good. This thing rocks.
Yeah, all of everyone that came out, especially the girls, they were awesome and extremely cool with carrying my casket per se to bury me and all that stuff in the video. So it was pretty cool. That was probably one of my favorite video shoots we've ever done, as far as how much fun we had on set. And then also my Papa Frank, he's OG Jasper guy. He saw that it said no alcohol on set on the contract, so he broke out a bottle of moonshine and changed that real quick that morning. So
I do have a question about that song, and that song is a fantastic one, especially that guitar solo at the end.
Yes, sir.
And I know radio can cut that off if they choose to, but it reminded me a lot of course, another famous country song that has a guitar solo at the very end of the song. There's only so many of them, but "My Kind of Party" by Jason Aldean. It
Mhm.
reminded me of that, where the guitarist just was going crazy at the end. Was that something that you guys put in from the beginning? Like, how did that come to be, where you just told your guitar person, hey, I want you to go crazier? Or is that always the plan?
Well, no, that was definitely the longer version is the original version. We actually had to alter it to make a radio version to make it shorter. So the longer guitar version is the actual song. But we did it extended like that from the get go. We wanted it to whoop a little ass. My producer Jesse Triplett is the lead guitar player for a rock band called Collective Soul, which is from Georgia as well, and he played a lot of those guitar parts, and he's freaking amazing. He does awesome for our stuff. But yeah, I mean, all that stuff on the extended version per se is actually the original version.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, love that track. And that's one of the things I've actually noticed, is that the UK, for some reason, loves Southern rock. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing that's really cool about it too is, I draw a lot of influence from a little bit of everywhere. Like I said before, I mean, Travis Tritt, Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, Keith Whitley, George Jones. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of just Southern music. And I've always called it country done my way, because it is country, but it's country with balls. So I've kind of created my own sound with it. And, of course, the influence from Brantley and some of those guys from Georgia as well. Brantley leans a little bit more on the, I guess, harder rock side of country rock than I do. I lean a little more traditional, but it's really cool to just have all these dudes from Georgia that are extremely talented that I got to grow up listening to, and be able to play some music that I feel like is on par, or at least, in the same vein as some of these dudes that I love and still listen to today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love your music. And like you said, you lean a little bit more towards that rock side. Now, I got a question about that. When you were first starting out, was your mindset to emulate other country rock influences like Eric Church or some of these others? Or were you taking rock influences like AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, or Skinner, and just trying to incorporate that and making it more country?
So I definitely was not. I mean, I love Eric Church. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't really see the guys like Eric Church or whatever as kind of what I was trying to do. I saw. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Clay Davidson. I mean, he put out one of the most incredible country albums of all time. Back early 2000s, and if you haven't, you need to go get that record, because you can literally press play at the beginning and you'll never turn it off. It's that good.
I'll check it out. I've never heard of that one.
Clay Davidson, and he has a tune on there called "My Best Friend and Me" that has this like super ballsy acoustic heavy kick drum kind of. I don't even know how to explain it. You just have to hear it, but it almost is like do you remember the Hillbilly Shoes record from Montgomery Gentry?
Yeah.
It's kind of in that vein, and that's kind of the sound I've always wanted, where it's like acoustic heavy, because I'm an acoustic player, and of course, being a front man, you all know that we're a little bit egotistical, so we got to have our instrument in there somewhere. So that kind of sound I just have always gravitated toward, where it's acoustic heavy Southern rock, basically. I mean, and it just makes you feel good. So that's what I've leaned toward. But definitely check out Clay Davidson, man. He's amazing.
I will. I will. And so there's a famous music saying that says you have 20 years to write your first album and 6 months to write your second.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound accurate to you? Does that resonate with you? I know that you guys are working on your second album to be released at some point, but I know you put in several EPs, acoustic EPs, and singles before you put out your album in 2019.
Correct. Yeah. I would say yes and no, because everything has changed as far as how you market, especially as an independent artist like myself. 20 years ago, the second album, yes, you got to put it out there and it's got to be better than the first and whatever. And I still agree with that. But at the same time, we're always evolving. We're always doing, something to try to give the fans what they want. But also in today's world of social media and whatever, I mean, you don't really have any rules anymore. I could write a song right now on this podcast and release it tomorrow, and if it was good enough, it might go viral and boom, there you go. But it's just a different world than it once was, as far as where some of those sayings came from. Do I think they definitely have merit? Yes. But I just try to focus on working as hard as I can possibly work, right? And, just stay focused and try to, continue to give my fans what they deserve, because they're awesome, of course. And I mean, my fans are super diehard, show up to every show type fans and drive 6 to 8 hours to even come to our shows, but it's kind of crazy, and it's an extreme blessing for sure.
So, Jacob, what's the story that I heard about you having a finished album getting stolen from your producer's house?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my producer Jesse Triplett, that plays lead guitar for Collective Soul that I'd mentioned earlier, he called me one day, and we were actually on the road, and he asked me if I was sitting down, and I said no, I'm standing in the bus playing golf on on the Xbox in the front lounge. Like, what's up? And he told me to sit down, because he had some bad news, and I'm like, what's up? Well, he came off the road, and what had happened was there was some teenage kids or whatever had broke into his home, vandalized his entire house, spray painted all over his guitars. I mean, like, there's some incredible guitars and stuff in there, of course, that you can imagine that he's been gifted over the years, and spray painted his TVs and all that stuff. Well, they didn't steal any of that stuff. They just spray painted it. They stole the hard drives and the computer that had all of our files on it.
Wow.
So he calls me and he's like, dude, that's 2 years of our work that's like gone. Well, we were all, of course, distraught. I mean, that's 1, 2 years of your life, and 2, a lot of money, And anyway, long story short, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, so have you not uploaded any of this to like a cloud or sent it to the mastering guy to see like kind of how he feels? And he went, whoa, wait a minute. I actually did send him some references the other day. So he sent some references to Dan Shike, the guy that masters our records and stuff. And Shike, sorry, Dan, if you're listening to this, I don't know exactly how you pronounce your last name, but anyway, had sent it over to him, and we were able to semi saved the project because he had sent some MP3 ideas per se over to him. They were nowhere near finished, not the final vocal, not the final guitar, like nothing. So the album that you hear is probably 3/4 of the way even finished. We just mastered it 3/4 of the way and released it because it was the only option we had. And the success that it's had kind of proved to us that a lot of people like the raw and real. So this new project, we've kind of taken that into consideration and left a lot of the imperfections not so much in our mindset and made it just like good, raw, real music.
That is an awesome story. Oh my gosh. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, you want to talk about getting me fighting mad? I was mad. Because 2 years, if you really think about it, doesn't sound like a lot of time, but with the back and forth to Nashville, paying for the players, paying for the producer, paying for the studio, with each session, over the course of time, that's a lot of work. And we had thought that it had been stripped from us. So it was very stressful for a second, but thank God and Dan, of course, from being able to pull off a miracle and make it sound like a full project. So it played itself out.
That's an incredible story. And speaking of recording some music, I think you mentioned before that you wrote 25 in Jail with Daniel Lee, right?
I did.
That's awesome. Yeah, we like Daniel Lee. We interviewed him. Great guy.
He's a cool cat, man. And that's not the only song we wrote together. That's just the only one that I guess per se has got the limelight. But yeah, we're trying to hook up again and write some more, man. He's an incredible writer, great guy, and I'm a huge fan of him as well.
Love Daniel. Another track I really like is One More Night That You Do, which closes out your album before you do the deluxe. I really like that song, man. I know you probably haven't done that one as a single, but I really like the vocals on that. I think I like your high end that you guys do. It's a little bit more on the radio friendly side in the chorus, but I love that song.
Yeah, One More Night. Yeah, that was an Alex Hall song that Alex and Jesse, my producer, actually wrote together. And Alex released that song long before we even cut it. And I was a fan of it, just like you were. I mean, it kind of makes you feel good and upbeat. And, it starts off as kind of like a mid tempo thing, but then you get in the chorus, it kind of has that upbeat feel. But yeah, it's definitely one that I unfortunately forget about sometimes. But now that you say that, I may have to put it back in the set because I really do love that tune.
It's a little bit different style vocally than I've heard from your other songs. I mean, you kind of hit some of those high end notes here and there, but that song is kind of chock full of them in the chorus. And it's a little bit different style, which I kind of liked as a contrast.
Yeah. I mean, the baby, I don't know where it kind of goes up. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a good track. And then I really like Baptized in the River. That one's a really good one. I think out of the 5 that you released, that may be my favorite one from 2020.
Well, Baptized is also written by the same guy that wrote This Side of Sober. I don't know if you heard that one, but
it's a good one.
This Side of Sober was one of the songs that kind of, I guess per se, not necessarily saved my life, but made me understand that I had a problem after my mother had passed away, and I needed to look into it, and get my crap together, and anyway, long story short, that same guy wrote Baptized by the River and sent it to me, and I was like, oh man, this song's kind of cool. I said, I think if we make it super guitar heavy, this is going to be really cool, and we did, and I'm extremely happy with how that one turned out for sure.
That's a good track. And then the latest one, Good Old Boy. I like that one. That one has a really, really great guitar riff. And then you guys go into the piano right there. It almost sounds a little bit like Danger Zone for a second before it goes to the piano.
Yeah. I wrote that with also Joel Shoemaker, same guy that did Baptized, and then a guy named Brett Beavers that did all the Dierks Bentley stuff, produced and wrote most of the Dierks Bentley songs that you would probably know. but I wrote that with them, and that was the first song we'd ever written together, and we didn't really think nothing of it, when we first wrote it, and then when we kind of put the full band with it and amped it up a little bit and whatever, it kind of came to life. So it's been a cool song for us, especially live, because it kind of has that little bit of cocky, I stand for what I stand for thing going on. So it definitely gets the fans involved.
And speaking of full band and recording, Up in Flames is one of the ones that I see on your set list that you do, and it's a fantastic song. But is there a full recording with a band of that song? I know you have an acoustic version of it.
No, there's not. I actually wrote that song with a guy named Josh Schilling. He's the lead singer for a bluegrass band called Mountain Heart, which was one of my favorite bands growing up. Once again, going back to my bluegrass influence, that was the first song we ever wrote together, and we haven't unfortunately been able to write again since then because of both of our touring schedules being crazy. But that one, at some point, I think I'll probably release one and just kind of leak it or something, because it's been out for so long now. Like, I don't think I would want to like sell it or anything, but I may, if we're already in the studio and the band's already there or something like that, I may record it and just release a full band version or something like that and give it to people for free or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear a full band version. I didn't know if you had one already recorded, because it's a pretty good song. And usually I'm always about, I like to hear my acoustic versions, and then I like to hear the full band versions. And sometimes one is better than the other. Up in Flames, I don't know if you're going to be able to top it with a full band version. It's pretty solid the way it is.
The way we play it live, if you haven't never seen us live, we come out of that and go into Midnight Rider, Allman Brothers, and kind of flare it up a bit. So it'd be interesting to do it. We just have to figure out if the licensing would work out right, because if you're gonna do, I got to run to keep from hiding, if you're gonna do that, commercially released song, you're gonna have to pay for it. So I'd have to talk to management and see exactly how that would work out. But it's definitely a good idea for sure.
And so let's talk about rock music. This is the Rock Down South podcast. I know I listen to a wide variety of rock music, from classic rock to heavy metal to 80s rock to modern hard rock. So, Jacob, what do you like to listen to just in general? And then what are you listening to lately?
Man, I know before we came on air, I was telling you, every morning when I get in my truck, I listen more to like Sirius XM's Octane with Grant Random or Jose Mangan or C-Babs or whoever's hosting at that time. And I always like to give them credit for that because they're incredible hosts. But I listen to more rock music realistically than I do country nowadays. But when I do get in my country phase, I take it back to like Daryl Singletary, a guy that I was blessed enough to share the stage with, or George Jones, Keith Whitley, that kind of stuff. Dylan Carmichael, another younger guy that has the traditional and kind of blues rock thing that I have going on, and Brent Cobb, another Georgia boy. And then, of course, when my daughter's in the car, it's Justin Bieber or something like that. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, but no, for me personally, it's definitely more of the modern rock. I don't know if you've heard like Pop Evil, Breathe Again, or
Let's talk more about those things. I love those bands that you just mentioned. I love Asking Alexandria, Bad Wolves.
oh yeah, yeah,
Falling in Reverse. I think of some
yeah,
other ones.
yeah. Asking Alexandria is probably one of my favorites for sure. I actually watched a YouTube video of them playing "Bring On the Violence" or what. I don't know the actual name of that song, but you know which one I'm talking about, where
Yeah.
it kind of just absolutely kills. But that kind of stuff kind of gets me pumped up for the day. So I listen to that, I guess, like most people would if they were going to the gym or something. They like the little harder stuff.
Are you a big Pantera guy? I saw you posted when Vinny passed away.
Yeah, Cowboys from Hell is probably one of my favorite metal songs of all time.
Dude, Pantera, man, that is awesome. Love
Yeah,
Pantera.
I'm definitely not a biased country fan. I'm I'm just a dude that loves music, and if the music's good, then I love it. It doesn't matter if it's metal or bluegrass or gospel or whatever. I'm into it.
Any other new bands you've been hearing lately that you really enjoy?
Um, I don't know that they're particularly new, but maybe new to some of your listeners. There's a band called the Steelwoods. They are, in my opinion, the best Southern rock band outside of Blackberry Smoke as far as current Southern rock bands. The Steelwoods are the best Southern rock band on the face of the planet outside of Blackberry Smoke. I mean, those two bands are like having Skinner and 38 Special or, whoever on the same ticket. That they're just extremely buried in Southern rock influence and Allman Brothers influence, and they're extremely, extremely good. And I also love listening to Whitey Morgan too, which Whitey's more on the traditional countryside kind of wailing outlaw thing. But
You like the Whiskey Myers? I'm a big fan of those guys.
absolutely, yes, yes. Cadillac 3. I mean, a lot of them. I mean, Whiskey Myers is great. Alex Williams is another guy that I love. He has a song called "I'm a Little Too Stoned." A lot of those guys. Brent Cobb. And of course, I don't even have to mention them because everybody loves them already. But the Tyler Childers of the world and Sturgill
Yep.
Simpsons and all that stuff. I mean, I was listening to Sturgill before Sturgill was Sturgill. So it was really cool to see that rise. And then same thing with Tyler. I was listening to some of that stuff before it happened, and then it just all of a sudden, White House Road is boom, and there's Tyler selling out arenas, and I think it's awesome. I've never got to meet either one of those guys, but if I ever get a chance to play a show with them or hang out with them or whatever, man, I think it'd be cool to throw in a Sluberdooski, have a beer, and talk old school country music and bluegrass because they're both, Kentucky boys. So I'd be all about that.
Yeah, those guys are great. So I got another question for you.
Come on with it.
So what is the worst show that you've ever played that comes to mind?
Oh my God.
Maybe it was a bad venue, a bad performance you did, bad crowd, small crowd, or just a weird venue. What kind of comes to mind?
It wasn't the venue or the crowd's fault. It was all our fault. No, we've back before I quit drinking liquor, I used to like to partake of having an incredibly good time, they said. And we used to get a little bit too turnt. And we had one night where we all got a little bit too, I guess, too intoxicated to even play the show. So we were somewhere in BFE, Indiana. And I remember walking on stage and I looked at my guitar player and I was like, oh my God, this ain't going to be good, because I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect all the time,
Were you able to finish the show or even do the show at all?
Oh no, we did it, but it sucked. But it sucked. And I'm willing to admit that because that keeps me accountable. And I haven't had liquor, I guess, since right after Naomi was born, my daughter. I've kind of made the decision not to mess with it anymore, and I'll just stick to my Miller Lights, and they tend to keep me in the right path to do what I need to do and be able to chill out a little bit and have a beer or whatever. But yeah, that show is the one that my band and all of us, we kind of laugh about it now, but when it happened, it was like if you can imagine listening to like Ozzy Crazy Train or something like that while going down in a plane and that's about to crash and you don't know if you're going to live or die. That's kind of how it felt.
Well, hopefully the crowd was close to intoxicated as you, so they might have just thought it was a good show.
Well, that's funny you say that because the owner came up to my manager and was like, oh man, we want them back. They were incredible and all this stuff. We were all over there going, oh my God, they ain't never going to speak to us again or, whatever. But no, we've learned a lot of lessons over the years. I mean, we've been touring for a long time, and you get out there and you have to learn these things. You get on the road and you try to act like a rock star that you're not, of course, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, to wake up hungover as crap every day. So I kind of started putting limits on that kind of stuff, and I just play my music and have a couple millers here and there and have a little fun with it.
So these next three questions are what we close with and ask everyone. So first question, what would you tell your 21-year-old self?
What would I tell my 21-year-old self? I would tell myself, do not get married that young.
Awesome. Second question,
Yeah.
what are you drinking lately?
Miller Lite.
Do you deviate at all from Miller Lite?
Every now and then I'll have like an IPA or something if we go to like a microbrewery or something like that.
Okay, cool. And so, as you know, this is the Rock Down South podcast. What is something you love about the South, or many things that come to mind?
Man, about the South, I would just have to say 100% the cooking. I love to cook or barbecue or, grill out, whatever. I love Southern food. So green beans, mashed taters, slaw, fried chicken, which the fried chicken thing don't happen as much anymore because it's a lot of work. So I'm more like smoking some meat on the pellet smoker that RecTech sent me or whatever. And thank you to RecTech for that. But just the food in the South, and also too just the values as well. I think a lot of people from the South have good Southern values, and they're kind to people and things like that. So I'm definitely proud to be from the South. That's for sure.
Love that answer. And so thank you so much, Jacob, for being a part of the podcast today. Where can people find and connect with you online? And what do you have in the works that people should know about?
Yeah. If you want to connect with anything that I have, you can go to JacobBryantMusic.com. That's Jacob Bryant with a T, music.com. And our music is sold everywhere that music is sold. We have merchandise. I also have a men's grooming line that has shampoo, conditioner, pomade, beard oil, beard balm, cologne, a couple different fragrances as well as that. And outside of that, as far as what we have coming up, like I said, we're still writing, we're still recording for this next record, and the fans definitely need to look for the next single coming up very soon. We're hoping to have this thing out probably in the next, I would hope 6 to 8 weeks here. So we just got a couple things that we're working on with the UK stuff and all that. So hopefully very soon. And if y'all need any help or anything like that, be sure to email my manager, Jeff Catton, jeffc@intuneentertainment.com.
All right. Where can they find you on social media?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. It's all at Jacob Bryant Music on Instagram. Twitter is at Jacob Bryant 1. And then Facebook, you can just search Jacob Bryant and look for the blue check mark on Facebook.
Thank you so much for listening to the show today. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. We had a really great time chatting with Jacob. That guy is super cool, and not only does he have an amazing singing voice, but as you all heard, he's got a really, really smooth, deep speaking voice that you just want to hear him talk for hours. He's a super entertaining guy who has some really, really great tunes, and we cannot wait to hear what new music he has in store for us. Definitely proud to say he's one of us from Georgia. Make sure to go follow Jacob on all of his social media pages and give his latest single a listen. I think y'all will like it. Check out all our content at rockdownsouth.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for the latest updates. And as always, the views and opinions expressed by our guests on the podcast are theirs and don't necessarily reflect our own. I'm Mark, and you've been listening to Rock Down South. See y'all next time.